This video was made possible by our generous supporters on Patreon. Check out patreon.com/NWR for all the details.
Skully reminds me of games from a different era. The new Switch game from Canadian developers Finish Line Games gives off an air that seemingly pays homage to old quirky mascot 3D platformers of the late 90s and early 2000s. As you roll around as a skull, affectionately named Skully, around enemies and obstacles, collecting items and accruing new abilities along the way. The relatively straightforward premise has a lot of promise, but issues ranging from visual quality to level variety hold it back from being a more memorable experience. That being said, even with the blemishes, Skully is an enjoyable ride. You initially roll around as just a skull, which feels similar to how the Morph Ball in Metroid Prime controls. A lot of the sphere's movement is based on momentum and nimble guidance. Initially, really all you can do is roll and jump. The story begins with Skully being revived by Terry, an elemental deity who is trying to work with his angry siblings to save the island they all live on from imminent destruction. It's primarily told through sparsely animated cutscenes that have a really pleasant and distinctive visual look, as well as well-acted voiceovers between Terry and his three siblings. The writing is overall enjoyable, and the story is surprisingly memorable and compelling, helped a lot by how Terry communicates with Skully and others during gameplay. Over the first half of the game, you unlock clay creatures that Skully can transform into at a checkpoint. The first of these is the strong form that can fight enemies and knock down rocks and walls. The second is the swift form, which can dash around and move certain platforms horizontally. The third is the vault form, which has a double jump and the ability to move certain platforms vertically. All three have their specific uses to solve different puzzles and overcome different problems, with some light ability evolutions as the game progresses. For example, the brawler can hit a lava rock enemy, stunning them briefly, and then when it chases you afterwards, you can lead it to blow up a wall. More complexities arise as you get deeper into the game. Some of the wilder puzzles involve using multiple creatures at the same time, because Skully can hop out of any creature with a button press, leaving a lifeless husk. You can have 3 creatures out at the same time, which lets you do things like leave a platform hovering in the air with one, and then hop into the double jump critter to make it to the next checkpoint. The checkpoints are relatively frequent, which is great because the difficulty curve does skew a little more challenging. You respawn almost instantly when you die, but the process of switching to different creatures or having multiple out is a slow one, as it resets after death. A few late game areas were more frustrating, just in how much I had to more mechanically and repetitively set up solutions. I'm fine with replaying tricky platforming segments to kinda nail those, but I'm less fine when it involves navigating a problematic camera to place a platform in the exact right place. And let me tell you, that camera is a piece of work. You can rotate it around in most situations with the right stick, but sometimes that involves the camera being stuck in a wall, or maybe even Skully, not showing much of anything. It also doesn't help that while you do go through a variety of locales, whether it's rivers, mountains, or molten caverns, the individual levels feature a lot of repeating foliage and rooms. It makes the task of exploring the levels an arduous one because it's shockingly easy to get completely off track, especially as the design of the puzzles and everything gets more complex. The levels are primarily a straight line, but each one has a certain amount of flowers that can be collected. They unlock concept art bonuses, which isn't the most alluring reward, but still, it's generally fun to try to figure out how to reach some of the hidden and out-of-the-way flowers. Seeking them out does entice you to explore more, which Skully just doesn't seem designed to do. Once again, because of how similar whole levels look, it's sometimes hard to find where you should go. On Nintendo Switch, Skully runs totally fine, but definitely at a visual cost. The handheld version looks washed out, which makes it harder to sort out the similar-looking environments. Everything fares a lot better on the TV, but I did have to dramatically alter the in-game brightness setting as some levels were very dark and hard to see. Note that this happened across 2 different TVs, and every other game I played on both TVs didn't have any brightness problems. So just don't be afraid to crank up that brightness if you're having any trouble. While Skully definitely has its fair share of problems, I still had a fun time in this world. The camera is frustrating, but the twitch rolling and platforming, mixed with the increasingly devious puzzles, makes for a pretty good gameplay combo. Even though the Switch version's visuals are a little on the rough side, which doesn't play nicely with the overall visual blandness of the levels, the style of the character designs is appealing. Underneath Skully is a lot of charm, but enough issues pile up that pull it back into the mud.
This video is made possible by our generous supporters on Patreon. Did you know that Nintendo World Report is funded directly by fans like you? When you support Nintendo World Report on Patreon, you get immediate access to multiple exclusive podcasts every month, exclusive Discord channels, an early look at select content, and more, all for as little as $1 a month. Check out patreon.com/NWR for all the details.